This is The Weekly Set, an official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
You have come here to beseech me?
Can't ask for your soul.
Madness can be a medicine for the modern world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are doing episode 271 of the podcast. We are not going to be talking about Lovecraft Country. If you've been watching us recently, that's what we've been covering. Today we're taking a break from it because The Boys dropped its first 3 episodes of season 2. So we're going to talk about those tonight, and then next week we're going to catch up on the 2 episodes of Lovecraft Country that will have aired in that time, and the next episode of The Boys that airs at that time. So just so we don't have to talk about 4 episodes in one show. We've done it this way. We've done 3 and 3 instead. So I think that works a little better. So we're just going to focus in on The Boys today. We're going to be talking about episode 1, 2, and 3 of season 2, titled The Big Ride, Proper Preparation and Planning, and Nothing Like It in the World. Those are the 3 episodes we're going to be discussing. Of course, The Boys is from showrunner Eric Kripke, who did Supernatural. It's produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who produced Preacher, and it's based on the comic books by Garth Ennis, who was also the creator of Preacher, that comic book series that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg did. So that's kind of just the basic background for it. We already did a podcast where we talked about the entirety of season 1. Did that a while ago, like a year ago, I think. So you can check that out if you want. I'm not sure exactly what episode it is, but go back through our archives on YouTube and you can find that if you want to see discussion about the first season. But today we're going to be talking about season 2. So just kind of first, right off the bat, what are your kind of first impressions about season 2 so far?
Oh, it's awesome. I love it. It's definitely got high moments. It's just as good or probably even better than season 1 because, and I say better because like this gets right to the action. So there's like, so like you don't have to go through like the introductions like they had to do in season 1. So,
yeah.
So this is awesome.
I don't think I felt like there's like been a big payoff yet. I know that they're doing the 3 episodes now and then doing it week to week because they said that the next, I think 7 episodes, I think there's, or 5 episodes. I don't remember how many are in the season. I think
there was 8 episodes in season 1. So I'm thinking same for season 2.
So like the remaining 5 episodes are supposedly so big that they wanted to give breaks between them instead of just having it binge the whole way so that they could encourage kind of like water cooler talk, you know, which works for us. That means we have time to kind of go over it. And they said that, yeah, that kind of starts with episode 4, just that all the episodes are so big. So I don't think we really got that big of a payoff yet. We had a few big moments, like cool moments, but nothing that's like, oh my God, that's huge, you know?
Right.
The one kind of huge thing, and I have to ask you because I talked to you about this before and I said that there's something at the end of episode 3 that I already kind of knew about, and I'm not sure how well it played because I already knew about it. So I'm not sure like how the surprise factor worked on it. So we're going to get right into spoilers. So instead of like just kind of putting this off.
What was supposed to be the surprise at the end of episode 3?
Well, the one kind of surprising thing was that Stormfront's is like raging racist.
Oh, I knew about that already. Okay. I mean, it's in her name.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like,
Stormfront is not subtle. There's a certain website that goes by that name.
Yeah, well, but like, in the comic book, it's a straight up Nazi.
Right, right.
It's a male character that's a straight up Nazi. And then they did the female character and they didn't push any of the racist stuff in any of the early promo stuff for her. And so like, even though all the superheroes are like horrible, none of them have just been like a straight up Nazi. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And even in like most of her appearances in the season, like she doesn't show that side of her.
Oh yeah. She's like she's kind of like almost like pro empowerment
she comes off as an angry feminist through most of like the episodes until like the very end when she reveals her true colors. But like, yeah, I knew that character. I knew what that character was supposed to be all about. I like the fact that they're not just making her like a cartoon Nazi, because that's not how it is in like the real world. Of course, like in the real world, there are people who run around in fucking Klan outfits, but there's also like the people who are like, it's more insidious.
Yeah.
Like they don't walk around showing their true colors. They don't walk around advertising that they're racist. And I think that's more insidious and more dangerous. And I think like, that's the portrayal about this that I like, is that, you know, she doesn't run, you know, aside from the goofy name, she doesn't run around advertising she's a Nazi, you know, but then when it comes down to like those moments, you know, her true colors, she shows her true colors. Yeah. And I think that's that makes her much more evil and insidious than the character in the comics, because the character in you know, that's like a goofy cartoon portrayal.
He straight up literally was in World War II Nazi, you know, like
yeah.
kind of like a Red Skull type character.
I think the deal with Stormfront is that this is more true to life.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, for anybody who doesn't know the difference kind of between the comic books and the show, I don't think Will or I can't speak for Will, but I haven't read the comics.
I haven't read the comics.
But I'm aware.
No.
I'm aware of some of the differences, you know? And so, like, if you're not aware of the differences, there's a difference between being edgy and being, like, edgelord, you know?
Yeah.
And the comics are very edgelord. They're very, like, extreme for the sake of being extreme, just, like, way over the top and cartoonish and ridiculous, like, preposterous to the point where, like, you can't really directly relate to characters or things like that, you know? It's very much in that vein, like, the comic book is like that. The show, I'm glad, isn't. Like, they tone a lot.
Yeah, that's what I said about season one. Like that's what I said about last season. Initially, I was worried about, like, the show because, like, I knew of the source material, and when I investigate the source material, like, it's so ridiculous. And I'm just not a big Garth Ennis fan because, like, he is, like, way over the top with his writing.
You're like, what, him and Mark Millar, right?
Yeah.
Very edgelordy.
They're very edgelordy. And so, like, but then when I watched it, I was like, they toned it, like, this is still, like, pretty graphic and edgy, like, but but if you compare it to the comic, they tone it down a lot, and they kinda...
And toning it down isn't a bad thing in this case. Like, usually it would be like, oh, they toned it down, but here it's like, they made characters relatable. Yeah. You know, like, it's a good thing, you know, like, they took it from being cartoonish and ridiculous and made it something relatable, and that's good. It's important. It makes it better. It elevates the material, you know? And that's definitely what the case is here. I mean, like, the comics is just flat out fucking ridiculous. And some of the stuff, like, you know, if you're aware of the comics, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see what they're doing with the character here. Like, they're making hints at something and maybe they'll do more. Like Black Noir, there's like hints at something that may be more disturbing to come, but we don't know if they're ever going to address that or how they'll do it. It'll probably be in a more nuanced way on the show. But in the comics, it's just straight up edgelord, cringe, ridiculous, you know? So yeah, it's Stormfront has been like de-edgelorded and still edgy, but it's not in the way it was, you know, not that same ridiculous way. And I kind of like the way it plays when you look back at it, because I already knew, so like I was picking up on things ahead of time, like how enthralled Stormfront was with like Homelander's like eyes being blue, you know?
Yeah.
It's an Aryan trait, you know?
That's the whole thing.
And if you just see it before, it's like, oh, she's just making some off comment about his eyes being really blue. And it's just kind of to show that she's not really paying that much attention to him when he's trying to talk. And like, that's kind of how they're playing it. But there's like another meaning to it. And that's just that it's an Aryan trait, you know, and that's what she admires.
Yeah.
As a Nazi, you know?
Right, exactly.
I wonder what somebody who had no idea what Stormfront was and then who they watch, I wonder how that surprise played, you know, cause it felt a little under like undertold or something, but like I don't know if that's just because I already knew and it was just a matter of like waiting for that reveal to happen, you know?
Right.
Or if it was kind of understated, because I kind of liked the way it happened and that there was like even before she made her comment when she killed like, you know, the girl's brother.
Well, she was going out of her way to kill,
killing the bystanders in the apartment and stuff.
In the apartment who were all black.
Yeah.
You know, she went out of her way to kill them when she was in the middle of a chase. You know, like that's something like even Homelander wouldn't have done that, because Homelander, at least when he's in public in action, tries to keep up the appearance of being a hero.
Yeah. Well, he would do it, but he would do it for the sake of like, to kill off witnesses. Well, you know, like that's why he didn't, why he let the plane crash and let nobody
Well, in that case, there's no reason. They're witnesses to what? A chase? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It was not,
he would have stopped for a moment and said like, I'm sorry for your damages or something, and then like continued to pursue and played the part of being like a superhero. And then he would have been just as vicious on the rooftop or something, you know?
Yeah.
But he wouldn't have been, just like indiscriminately, just like murdering everybody there, you know, just cause they're there. It's like, Jesus, you know, and you get to that point and then she finally, because at first you could, if you don't take in the fact that it was like all these people that were like black, you know, that she had killed in this apartment, you might not pick up on the racist connotation until she says her line at the end, which, you know, like when she kills the guy.
Right. That's when they make it like, if you haven't picked up on it.
Yeah. Here's your confirmation.
Here's your confirmation.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, it makes me interested in how they're going to play the character, because it was so.
Well, I'm just waiting for her to say something vaguely racist to A-Train, and A-Train being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, like.
A-Train's in an interesting position because he's being the same cocky asshole he was before.
Right.
And he's acting still kind of like hostile towards, Annie.
Starlight?
Yeah, to Starlight. He's acting hostile to her in the same way he was at the end of season 1. But at the same time, there's like brief moments in which it's kind of addressed that like he owes his life to her and Huey, you know?
Yeah.
And he's not accepting it yet completely. Like he's still just fucking like shining it off. But I think that's something they're going to get more into. And I could totally see them using like Stormfront as a wedge to make him feel less comfortable in the 7.
Yeah.
And then that would push him more into having a better understanding of why, you know, the others are like that. Even though the boys would never, like, Huey would never forgive A-Train. Like, even if he saved him, he's not gonna, like, team up with him, you know?
No, he's not gonna team up. I definitely think that, what's gonna happen over the course of the season is we are gonna find A-Train be more on board with Starlight than the rest of the 7. You know, so he's probably gonna come to switch allegiances.
I think they're setting that up with a lot of the 7 right now.
Yeah.
Because we already have Annie is full Team Boys now.
Yeah, she's full on Team Boys.
She's playing like a spy at the 7, you know?
But she was never fully Team 7 in the first place though, so she was probably just to convert. Cause she was like brand new there, and the first thing that happens is the Deep shows his like dick to her, you know, and then like she almost immediately like realizes how fucked up everybody is.
Yeah.
You know?
Queen Maeve, they're already playing up the angle of her fear of Homelander, which they did a bit in season 1, but they're doing it a bit more directly with the whole thing where she's hiding, the fact that she's visiting her ex-girlfriend.
Her ex-girlfriend, yeah. Like she was
out of fear that Homelander's gonna kill her, you know?
Yeah.
So they're already playing that up a lot more than they did in season 1.
Maybe because it turns out Homelander is very possessive of the women in his life. Okay.
A-Train we just mentioned, that's a concept. They're even doing it with the Deep, because the Deep is having this whole crisis. The whole first season, his whole crisis was kind of funny because he deserved it.
Yeah, he deserved it.
It was like he deserves to go through the shit he's going through, you know? But now it's kind of getting a little bit more tragic now.
Yeah, he was kicked out of 7 because not because he committed sexual assault, but
Because he was caught.
He was caught.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
it was like a Me Too situation, like where the networks that knew all along that some newscaster was harassing women finally are like, oh, we have to fire him now because everybody knows.
Right, exactly. They couldn't bury it, so they fired him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so like, he's been like on this like, since then he's been on like this weird redemption arc.
And it's been funny because he deserves all the shit he's going through.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
like, it's starting to get more serious in its tone now. He's connected to this religious cult, the Fresca cult.
Yeah, which is like similar to Scientology.
Do you like the whole Fresca thing though?
Yeah.
Every single time. You want a Fresca?
You want Fresca? Yeah.
So constantly. But yeah, so he's got this like whole Fresca cult thing that he's tied to. But he even has a moment, like you can already see where even though he's trying desperately to get back into the Seven, and he gives like Homelander this big hug and he's crying because his whale died and stuff. And he's like, oh, and he's like, the Seven, my family, here they are again. Like,
we should mention first before, like, there was like this whole sequence, right, where we find out like he's ashamed of his gills, and there was like this whole thing where like they gave him
Patton Oswalt and his best
Patton Oswalt and like the best cameo ever. But it's like they gave him some drugs, so like his gills started talking to him, and like he went through like this whole ordeal, and at the end of it, like he started to like accept himself. And so when he's hugging Homelander and shit, Homelander just like points to him and says, "You ripped your suit, your gill is showing. It's fucking disgusting. Hide that."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what's interesting is because he's coming from the perspective of desperately trying to get back with the Seven. And then that instantly planted this moment of doubt where he had finally come to accept this part of himself that he's been ashamed of, and now has had it like thrown back in his face by like the family he was trying to get back to.
Right.
And
exactly.
So like you're seeing a moment that could separate him from the group as well. And Black Noir, I guess the only thing we have with him is that he seemed to be crying when the news was released that everybody with powers got him through that Compound V or whatever.
Yeah, it appears he wasn't aware of Compound V.
He seemed to be crying. We don't really know.
It seems like only a select few were in the know about Compound V, that being Homelander and A-Train knew about it, and Starlight knew about it because she found out through working with Huey and the boys.
I think Queen Maeve did too, because her reaction seemed like it was something that she was kind of aware of.
I'm not sure though, because like I think they kind of played it like she was just finding out, too, because they never confirmed whether she knew or not. Homelander we know knew because he was purposefully giving it to terrorists, to terrorists, and and A-Train we know knew because he's actually like addicted to the stuff,
and he was running the stuff around,
and he was running the stuff around for Homelander,
and we know the Deep didn't know because he was telling a story about when he first started coming into his powers and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was shocked. And Black Noir seemingly didn't know because he seemed to be crying. I keep saying seem because you don't really know with Black Noir. He's a weird character.
He was definitely sobbing.
Well, he was sobbing or he was like laughing. I don't know. You can't tell with him. He's such a weird character,
He's such a, he's such a weird character. Like the season opens with like Black Noir basically killing the super terrorist they showed at the end of the last season. Mm-hmm. It opens with him like killing the guy. And then as he's like leaving, he runs into like the guy's kid. And it looks like he was gonna like jump in and kill him, but then he like picks up this teddy bear and like he starts like waving it around and like making noises like rah rah, and it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's like, is this his way of like trying to comfort the kid or something?
I think that's
so
actually
weird.
Kind of a call to his comic book version, which apparently has something to do with children that's disturbing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the full details of. I just know, like, I keep hearing people talk about Black Noir did some very disturbing stuff with children in the comics.
I don't know anything
I think
about
that's
that.
kind of a call to that. I'm not sure.
I just thought, like, that's a weird moment.
Yeah.
He's
a weird character.
Yeah.
Remember in the first season when he, like, stared down the piano player at the party and then like sat down and started playing piano.
Yeah.
It's just suddenly he's a weird character. He's clearly messed up in the head. And, that's why I say apparently he didn't know. Apparently he was crying. Cause I don't know. You know, like honestly, he could have been laughing like a fucking crazy person or something.
Okay.
It could be anything with him.
Meanwhile, the whole thing, Starlight's whole thing is the news about Compound V gets out entirely because of like Starlight and Huey. Like, Huey tells Starlight, you know, that she needs to get a sample. Starlight basically like goes to this hero who's like former
Gecko.
hero. Yeah, who potentially has access to the stuff. Gecko's like this guy who can basically like just regenerate his limbs. And she gets blackmail on him because apparently he uses that. He prostitutes himself out to people using his power because he has like people like, you know, chop off his extremities for pleasure.
Yeah.
And
just real psychopaths, you know?
Yeah, just real psychopaths. And apparently not only can he regenerate limbs, he apparently doesn't feel any pain from it.
I don't know if it's that he doesn't feel pain or that he's gotten used to it or like.
I don't know, but he had no reaction when that guy was hacking off his arm. Like he acted like that was nothing. So that tells me like there's no pain involved.
See, I don't know if I'd agree with you on that. To me, it read as like, it didn't read as, he wasn't like screaming, but I definitely read discomfort.
He didn't even change his facial
I saw discomfort on his face. And it could just be discomfort with the situation, that he doesn't like the situation he's in, and rather than pain, you know? But it could also be pain, and it's just either muted or he just does it so often that it's like, you know, it's like a druggie doesn't have a fear of needles, you know, kind of thing. But I definitely registered something on his face, not like, blasé. So I disagree with you on that, but you know, either one of us could be right or wrong there.
Well, anyway, he gets the sample for her, and that's basically how the whole thing came out. And so now that the cat's out of the bag with the Compound V, they're going to be looking for the mole. So like, she's put herself in further danger because of this. And also, like, she has A-Train breathing down her neck because, like, everything she does, like, because of what happened at the end of last season, A-Train is, like, everything she does, like, A-Train is, like, right there, like, what you doing, you know? Like, I saw you put something in your boot, you know, or who were you talking to?
She finally puts him down when she references the murder of his girlfriend, you know?
Yeah.
And that's enough to kind of put him in his place for a bit and allow her some breathing room to do what she needs to do.
Yeah, so basically, when A-Train catches her talking to Huey, you know, he thinks he's got her, and then she drops that bombshell on him, you know, she's like, I got dirt on you, you know, if I go down, you go down too, you know, and that kind of like keeps him in line.
Speaking of like power balance struggles like that, what did you think of Stan Edgar, the CEO of Vought, facing down Homelander?
Jesus, that was tense. You know, that was tense. That was Giancarlo Esposito at his best.
Yeah.
Again,
Gus Fring from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, just being like the most intimidating person in the room, even when the other person in the room is Homelander. You know, like, but it's kind of ruined because like in the very next episode, like Homelander dresses him down completely and basically tells him like the Seven isn't Vought, like he's the Seven. So
yeah,
and that they'll essentially do what they want.
So what do you think? Do you think that Stan Edgar has more to him that we don't know as far as leverage over the Seven? Do you think that he's just like a mortal who's playing high stakes?
I think he might. I think it'd be kind of stupid to like.
I think he might be Vought.
I think it's kind of stupid to like have all these, you know, these crazy powerful super beings like under you and like not have like any way to like really control them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, seems dangerous to me.
Yeah, I think he might be Vought, because when he was talking down Homelander, he was telling the story of Vought.
Yeah,
the man himself who started the company and did all this stuff. And he was specifically talking about aspects of his story that are made up versus aspects that are known. You know, that like he knows. Like he asks Homelander, he says, "What do you know about Vought?" And Homelander starts reciting shit that's like in his autobiography. And he's like, "No, not that happy shit that they feed out to the public, you know? I'm talking about the actual true story of Vought and what he did." And he's talking about like a Nazi scientist kind of thing, and like basically Project Paperclip, which is a real thing where they would bring over like German scientists and shit.
Yeah, and they
that's
said
a
like,
real thing, you know, that happened.
And they said like once he defected from the Nazis, once he defected to the US, like he created Soldier Boy, you know,
who's going to be in season 3.
Who's going to be in the season 3? Yes,
Jensen Ackles from Supernatural is playing him.
Very looking forward to that asshole Captain America. Yeah. And if anybody can do asshole Captain America, it's Jensen Ackles.
Yeah.
Like so perfect casting there, in my opinion.
But yeah, but like it makes me wonder, like, with the way they framed all of that, if Stan Edgar himself is Vought, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It just kind of seems to like, I don't know, like a big hint was dropped in that. But I could be reading into that. And I don't know if I like it more if he's just a human whose power is purely like political and economical, or if I like the idea that he's more than what he seems. Like, I don't know which I like more. Because if he is somebody who has no real defense against Homelander and yet is like talking him down like that makes his character interesting. It just shows how much balls his character has to do that, you know? But if he has something else to him, then that's interesting in a different way. So I don't know which solution I'm rooting for. If I want him to end up being like he's Vought and he's a super as well and all this stuff, or if I prefer that he's just a straight up normal human that just happens to have a lot of balls.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you lean any way on that, one way or the other?
I don't know if he's really Vought or what he has going on.
Is there one direction you prefer, though, is what I mean? Like, would you prefer it if he turned out to be a super, or would you prefer it if he, you know, was just a guy?
Oh, I'd prefer if he was just a guy. I think if he was a soup, that'd be kind of anticlimactic. Yeah, like, so I do think he's a regular guy, but I do think, like, he has things up his sleeve that he has cards that he hasn't revealed to anybody.
Yeah, you know, like political or economical cards, or yeah.
Yeah, some way to keep even like somebody like Homelander under control. Of course, I looked up the comic books, and supposedly there is something within the Seven that's supposed to keep Homelander, you know, under control. I won't spoil it, you know, in case they intend to do this for the series. So I won't say what it is, but supposedly.
What they're playing at here, I think, is that he's placing Stormfront on as kind of a check against Homelander's power.
Yeah.
Because Stormfront's powerful like Homelander is, you know, like where A-Train's just fast and Queen Maeve is kind of just strong, but she's nothing compared to like Homelander. Like Stormfront can fly like Homelander. Stormfront's got, like Homelander has laser vision, she has like lightning, you know?
She has like, yeah, it so far it appears that Stormfront can fly, she has super strength, she might be invulnerable, and she can shoot lightning bolt, you know.
Yeah, she's
force lightning.
She's closer to Homelander than anybody else on the Seven as far as like power.
Right.
With the possible exception of Black Noir, who we really don't know anything about, but we just learned has some level of invulnerability himself.
Yeah. Because he took an explosion to the face and survived.
Yeah.
You know, almost unscathed. So.
Maybe he has like a healing ability. I don't know. Like, that's what I'd guess. That he has something similar to, like, and
but
that's
it's he could have
like Kimiko, the female, has, like, is kind of the Wolverine of this, you know?
Yeah, Kimiko is like Wolverine in this.
So maybe he's kind of like the, Sabretooth.
Like I said, I don't know if they're following the comics, cause I won't say it. But,
we'll just say this. There's more to Black Noir than we knew in season 1.
Right.
And we don't know the extent of him.
We don't know the extent of him in this medium yet. Yeah, I think the only person we haven't talked about in the Seven, their journey this season so far, is Homelander. And Homelander so far has been more concerned with playing house than anything else.
Yeah, he wants to kind of get in with his son, but he's a psychopath.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
exactly.
it's really awkward. Him
That's
trying
right.
to be a dad is very, very awkward.
Some of the most cringe-inducing moments in the season are Homelander trying to be a dad, you know,
Yeah.
and because like he is a total sociopath who cannot relate to anybody, you know, and here he is trying to relate to his son that he doesn't know.
I know that Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander, has referred to Homelander as being like the weakest character on the show, like from an emotional like standpoint, you know, like he's developmentally and emotionally the weakest of all of the characters, but he's like shrouded in all this, you know, the most powerful superpowers of anybody on the show too, you know.
Right. He's potentially the most powerful being in the universe.
His kryptonite is emotions.
Yeah, his kryptonite is emotions. Obviously, this causes tension with the boy's mother, Billy Butcher's wife, or former wife, you know, who we found out was actually alive at the end of last season.
That's Becca Butcher.
Yeah, Becca Butcher. You know, she obviously she wants Homelander gone. You know, she goes to her handlers and begs for them to relocate her, get her away from Homelander.
And they're basically like, the cat's out of the bag, he knows, like, we don't want to antagonize him.
Yeah, we don't want to antagonize him further, just deal with it. And then they say something like, he'll probably just get bored and leave anyway. And then when she gets back, she encounters Homelander, and Homelander just flat out tells her, like, you know, I won't get bored and just leave.
Implying he was listening the whole time.
Yeah. And it's so tense. This comes to a head when basically he's convinced his son has the same powers as he does, right? And this boy, like, is ignorant of this, or either doesn't have powers or is ignorant of it. But it culminates with Homelander basically, like, pushing him off the roof of the house.
To get him to fly.
To get him to fly, and he doesn't fly. He falls to a thud and seemingly is dead. Although Homelander, like, even though, like, he's not responsive, everything, Homelander just keeps insisting he's fine.
He'll shake it off. He's fine.
Yeah, he'll shake it off. He's fine.
Take a lap, you know. Put some Pepto-Bismol on it.
Becca tells Homelander to leave. Homelander threatens Becca, and then this awakens the boy. The boy gets enraged, and he shoves Homelander and really knocks him back. His eyes start glowing, and that's when, like, realize, yeah, he really does have Homelander's powers.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to use them, like, because his dad's like, see, you have these abilities, you're like me, and he's like, I'm nothing like you.
Yeah.
He's telling his dad to get away from him, he's not happy with him.
So that covers the 7. So now we should talk about the boys.
Well, Huey's kind of taken over a leadership role in the group, but nobody seems really happy. Everyone's kind of on edge. They're in hiding when we check in with them.
Billy Butcher is gone. He's disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him after he, like, ditched them.
Yeah.
You know?
And they don't really want to get back in touch with him because he ditched them.
Yeah, exactly. They're still kind of
especially Huey. More than anybody, Huey's against it.
Yeah, more than anybody, yeah, Huey. But the thing is, like, Huey's, like, sitting there, like, saying, you know, like, I can be the leader now. And, like, Frenchie and Mother's Milk are kind of, like, looking at him like, fuck no. like no.
He's like, so I may not be, like, the strong, charismatic type you expect, but I could be, like Harry Potter. Like, the one that nobody expects to be great. Who actually is.
Who actually is. And they're like, no.
Yeah, so they eventually end up getting Billy Butcher comes back because Frenchie contacts him.
Yeah, Frenchie contacts him. I love it. One of the best moments of the entire season is Billy Butcher's reintroduction to the series, because when he shows up at the end of episode 1, like they're dealing with, like, there's a super terrorist who was smuggled in by, like, the people, like, Frenchie had basically, like, paid to, like, hide them.
Mm-hmm.
To basically, like, provide their hideout. Like, so Frenchie, like, paid these people. And we saw at the beginning, like, they were wrapping, like, cocaine and stuff. So they were, like, smuggling drugs. But then we saw, like, this guy with telekinesis get off the boat on, like, security footage. And Frenchie's like, I didn't know, like, they were smuggling people. I thought it was just drugs. And it's a great moment too, because as soon as they realize this, they hear somebody coming down, and they're all nervous because they're assuming it's one of like these people, you know, behind the smuggling ring coming down to like basically execute them. And they got their guns drawn, and it turns out to be Billy Butcher, right? And he's like, is this any way to welcome, you know, an old friend? Something like that. And then they put their guns down and they all hug him. Seriously, like, this was the most awesome reintroduction, because like Billy Butcher's talking to Huey and he's like, okay, we got like all these problems. Like we got the super terrorist running around. We're wanted men, you know, and all this. And he said, but don't you worry, Daddy's home.
Huey's like the only one that's completely not having it.
Yeah, exactly.
Huey and Billy have like quite a few hard encounters. Billy threatens his life at one point.
Oh God, well, it's because like, so what happens almost as soon as Butcher returns, he leaves again to talk to the former commander of the former commander of the boys.
One that brought them together. I don't think she ever led the boys, but she's the one that kind of recruited Billy.
Yeah, she's the one who recruited Billy. Yeah, she's the founder of the boys, at least. Grace Mallory. You know, she was recruited. He goes back to her. He basically makes a deal with her and the deal he makes is like he'll deliver this super terrorist that was smuggled into the United States if she reunites him with his wife, you know, and they make that agreement.
He kind of lies to Mother's Milk, saying that the agreement was that he would get him back with his family.
Yeah,
but we know that's not even on Butcher's mind.
No, he just says that to Mother's Milk to get Mother's Milk on board with his plan. You know, so basically the whole tension between Huey and Butcher does stem from what happened at the end of last season, but it gets exacerbated because we find out, like, when they catch up to this terrorist, we find out that he's actually Kamiko's brother, you know, and there's like this really touching moment where like Kamiko reunites with him and they're hugging, and that's when like Billy Butcher comes in and tries to take a shot, and Huey, realizing what's happening, stops him, like jumps him and makes him miss, you know? And this pisses off Butcher, you know, to the point, like, after they catch up to him, because, like, there's this fight with Kamiko and her brother, because her brother starts talking about, like, you know, he's gonna start killing people because America is bad and shit.
Yeah, he's been radicalized.
Yeah, he's been radicalized. You know, he starts talking that shit, and so Kamiko is like, no, I have to stop you from doing that, you know, and so they get into like a little bit of a fight, and Kamiko eventually like overpowers him, and that's when the boys catch up to him, and they capture him, they like bound his hands and get him into the truck, and it's there where like Butcher like flat out decks Huey, you know, and basically says, you get in the way of me and my wife again, and I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah. Huey kind of takes it, gets in the van. You can see he's displeased. He's not happy with the situation. There's going to be something's going to have to come from this tension between them. But yeah, so now we have, this is kind of the big crux, I think, the big story arc of the first 3 episodes is Kamiko and her brother.
Yes.
So it's her brother got abilities the same way Kamiko did, because they'd been testing it on adults and most of them just died. Kamiko developed powers, and then after they kind of put her away, they ended up saying, well, they had like 1 dose left or something, and they figured, well, if she got powers, then it's a good chance
he's related to
would.
her. Yeah, since he's related to her, there's a good chance he would too.
So he has like telekinetic powers. And the difference, the big stark difference between the two of them is that Kamiko found the boys, or the boys found Kamiko, and her brother stayed with the people that were using them and ended up becoming radicalized in the same way they wanted to radicalize her, but weren't able to because the boys got her out of there. So basically her brother never had a Frenchie to save her, you know, to save him. So it's kind of going back and forth through these 3 episodes, like the relationship between them. If like her brother, if he's going to stick to his plan to be a super terrorist or if he's going to kind of side with the boys. And it jumps back and forth a few times. Like it looks like, oh, they might be getting through to him, but then he tries to get away, you know, or something else happens. And this comes to a head after Billy uses him to save Huey, who is like in a very bad situation where he's like, Starlight him and Starlight caught up to each other and Homelander was right on their tail and is telling Starlight to kill him or that he'll kill both of them if she doesn't. So like they're in this like impossible situation and Billy's about to just kind of like let it go, just like let Huey die, basically. But then, you know, ends up realizing that he needs to save him. I don't think he realizes that he needs to save him because Huey's important to the group so much as that if he doesn't save him, then the rest of his group is going to just walk on Billy. But he ends up realizing that he needs to end up saving Huey, and so he uses Kimiko's brother to do it, to temporarily put Homelander down so that they can get away. But in doing so, this allows Kimiko's brother to escape.
Right.
And he escapes, and this brings us to the part we talked about at the beginning of the podcast with the new member of the Seven.
This leads to the new member of the Seven's big moment. And I think like they did something intentional here where they had that moment where Billy Butcher, in order to save Huey's life from Homelander and Starlight, but mostly Homelander because he was the one making her kill Huey.
Yeah.
Like the big moment where Billy Butcher used Kimiko's brother to temporarily take out Homelander. I think they juxtaposition that with what happened with Stormfront because Stormfront catches up to him and Kimiko and she totally takes him out and she kills Kimiko's brother. And I think that's kind of like a subtle suggestion to say like Stormfront maybe more than a match for Homelander when it comes down to it. I think they might be like suggesting that with like that juxtaposition.
Yeah, well, they're definitely playing up a tension between them. Homelander already doesn't like her because she's appointed without his consent.
Right.
And that's so, and immediately, regardless of who she is, he doesn't like that.
And also she showed up and announced she was a member of the Seven without Homelander writing off on that. Specifically after Homelander told his new assistant, you know, or his
after he totally fucked over Daredevil.
Yeah. Oh god, that was like one of the greatest moments in the season so far was that where they show off like Daredevil basically.
Blind Spot is the character's name. He's basically Daredevil.
Yeah, he's Daredevil. He's a blind acrobatic martial arts superhero with like super hearing and shit. It's Daredevil. And that was such a great scene because like he's like, "Oh, Homelander, it's such an honor to meet you." Like he's introduced to Homelander as the newest member of the Seven.
Yeah.
And Homelander is just like, "So I have a question for you." He's like, "Yeah, go ahead." And he's like, "Okay, so what if," and hypothetically, okay, let's just say hypothetically, but what if somebody were to do this? And he like claps his fucking ears and like basically like makes him deaf, you know, like his ears are he's bleeding all over the floor. And Homelander goes, "Yeah, now you're just another fucking useless cripple." And then he turns to like his assistant, you know, the woman who took over Madeline Stillwell's role, and he says, "You know, if anybody is going to be allowed into the Seven, that's going to go through me.
Don't bring me any more cripples."
Don't bring me any more cripples. But he specifically said, "From now on, I decide who gets into the Seven, not you or not anybody else."
Stan Edgar placed Stormfront on there, which immediately when she announces she's part of the Seven and Ashley, this woman that had just gone through this experience, is there, like Homelander looks at her and she just looks like she's about to shit a brick.
Yeah, she does. Because you know, like, yeah, from first blush, Homelander is not pleased about this.
Yeah, and she's like, I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
I didn't know. Yeah. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, she looks like scared to death. So that's just the point is that Homelander's already, it wouldn't matter if she'd be like his favorite person. He is not happy about the situation already that she's been appointed. So he's not happy about that. But then on top of that, she's kind of like, she doesn't care what he thinks. And that is unnerving him too because he's used to everybody being afraid of him.
Yeah, he's
just not.
Yeah, he's he's used to everybody being afraid of him and having dominance over the other members of the Seven. And she basically, like, shows up like she doesn't give a shit about him.
Yeah, like, it just doesn't matter to her at all. Like, you know, like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, he's like, well, I think, and she's like, yeah, whatever. Just like, I don't care, you know, and that's like really setting him off. When they arrived at the beach to track down the boys, he was like claiming dibs on the terrorists.
Oh yeah, and he claimed it. Yeah, he claimed dibs on the terrorists. And then when he gets to the rooftop and he sees that Stormfront had already killed Kimiko's brother, he says that was supposed to be mine. And she said something like, "Well, you snooze, you lose, Gramps." Yeah. You know, something like that. And you just see, like, this murderous look on his face, you know.
And it gets even worse because, like, then they start doing a PR event and she puts herself front and center with him in the background as she starts addressing, bringing up, going, like, she does the whole, like, the real heroes are the people behind us here, like, you know, which is, like, totally, like, the kind of thing Homelander would do. So she's taking over this role from him. So, and you could see, like, he's staring daggers into her back.
Yeah.
As she's doing this, you know, he is not happy. And so this is kind of like her role. She's like an antagonist to not only the boys, but also to Homelander.
Yeah. And also now, like, Kimiko is, like, especially focusing, like, her anger and rage on Stormfront. You know?
Oh, yeah. There's a shot where, like, it shows that press conference, and then it cuts and you see that the boys are all gathered watching it on TV. And the look on Kimiko's face is just like pure hate. It's just like smoldering hate, you know?
Yeah.
Stormfront is on somebody's shit list. You know that for sure. Not just Homelander. She's on somebody else's shit list too. She's on Wolverine's shit list.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, that's kind of where we leave off. That kind of covers everything that's happened in this season so far. We got through kind of everything I wanted to talk about. We got through Blind Spot, Gecko, all the Seven, all of the boys, the key players in Vought, like Stan Edgar and Ashley.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is to cover at this point.
We talked about the Deep Skills, as voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Of course, like I said, that was amazing.
We talked about the Cult of Fresca.
Yeah, because, like, I was even going to go back at the end and talk about, like, the amazing moments that we did, but then we ended up, like, mentioning them anyway. So I was like...
I guess the one, if we want to talk about an amazing moment that we didn't mention, would be the whale.
Yeah, so, like, when they're on the boat, the boys are on the boat, and like all the fucking like dolphins and shit start ramming it, and then so you know like the Deep is somewhere around, and then they get into like the smaller boat, the escape boat, and they're racing, and then you just see the whale come out of the water, and the Deep is like riding on top of the whale, like this total like Aquaman moment, right? And they're trying to head for the storage drain, and the Deep like positions the whale in front of it, and he's standing on top of the whale with his arm folded, like
he kind of shakes his head in like a ha-ha kind of way.
Like triumphant, like, I got you now. And because Billy is a psychopath, he just rams the boat right into the whale and kills it.
Yeah, and then he just speeds it up. Yeah, puts the boat into full gear and just slams it right into the whale. He just
slams it right into the whale. And you see like this look of like total horror on the Deep's face, because he was not expecting that at all.
Yeah. Well, the best part with that, I think, was that after everybody's climbing out of the inside of the whale from the boat, Huey's just kind of staying inside. Yeah. And he just has this look on his face like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And so like, Billy gets out and he's like, come on, man. He's like, you gotta go. And he's just like, just fucking leave me. And so he's like, well, I tried. And he leaves.
Mother's Milk has to.
Yeah, Mother's Milk just sits there with him. And he's like, well, if you're staying, I'm staying, you know? And that's like the final thing that gets Huey to actually move, you know? But it's just the look on Huey's face of just like, fuck this shit, you know? But yeah, we pretty much covered it all. So that covers, I guess we could talk a little bit more about the Fresca cult. They're called the Church of the Collective. We met 2 members, Eagle the Archer, who's another super.
Yeah, he's basically Hawkeye, Green Arrow.
Yeah. And then Carol, who is this, seems to be just a regular person who's like a teacher for Eagle the Archer. The Deep said psychologist, and she said, I don't like that term. I go by teacher, you know? And then they mention they had a leader named Alistair.
Yeah, I suppose I don't
That's
know
what we know so far. That's not much.
I have no idea where that's going. It's not really interesting to me, to be honest. It's probably one of the least interesting things of the season so far.
I think it has the potential to turn into something else, so that's what could be interesting about it.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know, because I genuinely don't know where they're going with that, or if it's even going to like turn into more of a thing.
I think it's got to, just so they can have that running joke about Fresca.
Yeah. Have Fresca and make an appearance in every episode.
It's gonna be one of those things, like in Fight Club, when like he'd be talking to somebody and they'd say like, "Oh, it's not a problem, sir," and he's like, "Oh shit," that was like he realized they're part of it. They're part of his group he created,
Right.
I think it's gonna be the same thing with the Fresca. You're gonna like have a moment where you meet a character and you just think like, "Oh, this is just some person that's being an annoying, pest when they're trying to get something done," and he's like, in the way of them getting done what they need to do. And then at some point he'll say, "Do you want a Fresca?" or something, and it'll be like that cue in, "Oh, he's part of this cult." I think they're going to use that in the kind of same way that allows us to point out who is in this cult. And I think this Alistair guy is probably a super, the founder of the cult, and it could go in an interesting place. Right now it's just kind of a running joke more than anything else.
One thing we know for the future is we know Lamplighter is supposed to make an appearance this season.
Yeah, played by Iceman.
Yeah, played by Iceman. We know like Lamplighter is responsible for the dissolution of the original version of the boys. Because
he killed Grace's family.
Yeah, I was trying to remember her name. Yeah, he killed Grace's family.
He was a member of the Seven who was kicked out because of that. He's the person that Starlight is replacing in season 1.
Yes.
When Starlight comes into the Seven, it's because Lamplighter had done this and they needed to bury him to get him out of the way because they knew if he remained in the Seven, the story would come out.
Yeah.
And it would cast a very bad light on the Seven that he like murdered this woman's family. So he's going to be a former member of the Seven and he's going to be in the season. We know that. We already have that information.
Yes. So
did you hear the bad news though? Which is that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is supposed to be in season 3 as well. Not just Dean Winchester, but Papa Winchester as well.
Okay, yeah, get on with it.
But he was only supposed to be filming for a limited amount of time, and because of COVID-19, because of there's like a 2-day self-quarantine or something to get into Canada, from the US to Canada. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan films The Walking Dead in America. Mm-hmm. And so that might end up killing his role in season 3.
That would suck.
So he apparently had an interesting role he was going to play in season 3. And it's always cool to see anybody from Supernatural show up in The Boys, because it's Eric Kripke, the original showrunner of Supernatural, that runs this show. And that's one of the reasons why it's so cool that we're going to have Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy next season. But it might end up being for Jeffrey Dean Morgan might end up not having a role.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan's cool, and it'd be cool to see him in The Boys. He's very fitting, He was already in another kind of send up to superheroes. He was in the Watchmen movie as a comedian.
Yeah, definitely.
So it'd be cool to see him in another role like that. But we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. That's it though. That covers the first 3 episodes of The Boys. We're going to be talking about this week to week along with Lovecraft Country. So next week we're going to talk about this week's episode of Lovecraft Country, as well as next week's episode of The Boys. So we're going to talk about both of those on next week's podcast. And then from that point on, we're just going to be doing both Lovecraft Country and The Boys as they come out. The Boys is out every Friday. So every Friday a new episode comes out. Lovecraft Country every Sunday. And we podcast on Monday. So perfect. That's going to be our run of podcasts for the next foreseeable future.
Nice.
So yeah, all that's left to do is kind of talk about what's coming up in the weeks ahead. So we are recording this on September 7th. On September 9th, on Wednesday, Woke comes to Hulu. LA's Finest debuts on Spectrum. It's going to show up later. I'll talk about that on Fox, but right now it's going to be on Spectrum. On Thursday, September 10th, The Idhun Chronicles comes to Netflix, and Julie and the Phantoms comes to Netflix. On Friday, September 11th, The Duchess comes to Netflix. On Sunday, September 13th, Our Cartoon President returns to Showtime. Tigtone comes to Adult Swim, and Vod or Volk comes to PBS. On Monday, September 14th, The Third Day miniseries comes to HBO, and We Are Who We Are miniseries comes to HBO. On Wednesday, September 16th, Archer returns to FXX. This is a big deal because the last, 4 seasons of Archer have all been in a dream, right, as he's been unconscious, and apparently this is going to be him waking up from his coma and getting back to the kind of main Archer storyline that's been on hold for 4 seasons. On Thursday, September 17th, the miniseries Departure comes to Peacock, The Last Word to Netflix, and the animated Dragon's Dogma comes to Netflix. Are you interested in that at all?
I don't know. I've never played the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It kind of has a bad CG look. I'm not too excited about it.
Kind of indifferent at this point.
On Friday, September 18th, Pen 15 returns to Hulu, and Ratched comes to Netflix. Ratched, of course, is the next series from Ryan Murphy, who signed a big contract with Netflix. On Sunday, September 20th, Last Tango in Halifax comes to PBS. And on Monday, September 21st, Big Hero 6 to Disney XD, Filthy Rich to Fox, and LA's Finest to Fox. So that's the one I mentioned on Wednesday is going to be coming to Spectrum. Well, on Monday, the 21st, it's going to be coming to Fox. So it's got a 2-week lead, basically, on Spectrum before it comes to regular cable or regular broadcast, I should say. So that's it next week. As I said, we're talking about The Boys and Lovecraft Country. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Foxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Hi.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in genre television.